Here are some facts about me. I had a gambling addiction. I spent my whole life in a debt pit. I was sentenced to death. I had 2 stormy marriages. All facts are truth. I am Fyodor Dostoevsky, a Russian novelist and philosopher, known for exploring the depths of human psychology and morality in works like Crime and Punishment and The Brothers Karamazov. I am ashamed of some things, and some things almost destroyed me. However, it is an integral part of my life. It proves that famous people have the same problems and life challenges as everyone else. Now all about it in more detail. Section 1, I had a gambling addiction. Ah, my friends, if you could glimpse into the abyss that consumed me, you might begin to understand how a man of intellect, a writer with a keen sense of human nature, could succumb to something so destructive as gambling. It is not merely a vice, but an irresistible pull, a mirage that offers hope while concealing the ruin that lies ahead. It began as many downfalls do, innocently, with curiosity and a small wager. The roulette wheel spun, glimmering under the lights, a perfect symbol of chance. At first, it seemed a harmless diversion. A few rubles staked, a modest win. Then another. How intoxicating it was to imagine that fortune could be tamed, that the fates could be bent to my will. That illusion, my friends, was the bait, and I swallowed it whole. I cannot forget the visceral thrill of those moments, the coins weighed in my palm, the wheel spinning in hypnotic rhythm, my heart pounding with anticipation. But the moments of triumph were fleeting. More often, there was loss. The ball would settle in the wrong slot, my wager swept away, leaving me grasping for another chance to make it all right. Satisfaction. That cruel word was always out of reach. I told myself, just one more spin, one more chance, but the wheel always demanded more. Soon, gambling was no longer a diversion but a compulsion. It consumed everything, my money, my time, my dignity. The advances on my royalties vanished into the green tables. I pawned belongings, borrowed from friends, even used money meant for household needs. More than once, I returned home in the cold hours of the morning, pockets empty, my thoughts a storm of regret and despair. And Anna. My beloved Anna. She suffered most of all. Her faith in me, her patience, it was a fortress, but even the strongest walls cannot endure endless assault. There were arguments, of course. Promises made, only to be broken. No more, I would tell her. I swear, Anna, never again. And yet, the pull was too strong. It wasn't long before I was back at the tables, lost in the dream of a win that might erase my failures. But every spin of the wheel seemed to tighten the chains around us. I think often of the nights I stumbled out of the casino, the streets dark and unfeeling, the stars overhead mocking my despair. How did it come to this? I, a man who could analyze human weakness with surgical precision in my writing, was utterly enslaved by a mechanism of randomness. It was as though I had become a character in one of my own novels, trapped by my flaws, unable to escape the inevitable. My debts mounted, my reputation suffered, and the strain on my marriage grew unbearable. Yet, out of that torment came something I could not have foreseen. I channeled my experience into my work. The Gambler was born not as fiction but as a confession, a reckoning with my darkest impulses. It was written under extraordinary pressure, not only to meet a publishing deadline but to pay off debts that threatened to drown me. Anna played a crucial role in this as well. She transcribed my dictated words, her pen racing to keep up with the torrent of thoughts I poured out, fueled by desperation. The writing of that novel was both cathartic and harrowing. The protagonist, Alexei Ivanovich, is not merely a fictional character but a reflection of my own struggles. His obsession with gambling, his self-destructive tendencies, his yearning for redemption, all of it came from the depths of my soul. Through him, I laid bare my failures, hoping to find some measure of salvation in the process. But even after the novel was completed, my battle with gambling did not end. The addiction left scars that would never fully heal, not only on me but on those I loved. Anna remained by my side, though I know her patience was tested to its limits. Our financial struggles persisted, compounded by the relentless demands of creditors and the pressure to produce more writing. Looking back now, I see those years as both a curse and a crucible. They taught me harsh truths about myself and the human condition. Gambling is not merely a vice, it is a mirror that reveals the raw, unvarnished desires of the soul, the hunger for control, for meaning, for escape. And in confronting that mirror, I came to understand that the greatest battles are not with fate, but with the weaknesses we nurture within. So, my friends, my story is not one of triumph, but of survival. I paid dearly for my folly, losing money, trust, and peace of mind. But I also gained something that no roulette wheel could ever offer, the knowledge that redemption lies not in the hands of chance but in the choices we make and the truths we are willing to face. Section 2, I spent my whole life in a debt pit. Ah, my dear listeners, you see before you a man who has grappled not only with the depths of his soul but with the relentless demands of an unforgiving world. What bitter irony that a mind capable of creating profound works, of exploring the human spirit in all its complexity, could be brought so low by the weight of financial ruin. Debt. The word itself stings like nettles, a constant reminder of promises unfulfilled, obligations unmet. It is a chain that rattles through every moment of the day, a shadow looming over even the brightest hours. From the first light of morning to the stillness of night, its voice is unrelenting: pay, repay, or be destroyed. My creditors were many, and their persistence was merciless. They pursued me with the ferocity of wolves, their demands a relentless echo in my life. Do you know what it means to flee, not from war or persecution, but from those who hold your very survival in their hands? I left Russia not as a man seeking adventure or inspiration but as a fugitive. In Paris, Geneva, Florence, and Baden-Baden, I sought refuge, not only from the creditors who hounded me but from the weight of my own failures. Yet wherever I went, I could not escape myself. I must not lay all blame on chance or circumstance. The roulette wheel, with its promise of swift fortune, held a particular sway over me. How easy it was to believe that just one more spin, one more lucky turn, could solve my troubles. But the truth is harsher. I lost not only money but dignity and trust. Advances from publishers, loans from friends, even funds meant for my wife Anna and our children, all were consumed by the insatiable demands of my debts. Anna. My Anna. She bore my failings with patience and fortitude that I can scarcely comprehend. It was Anna who stood by me through the darkest times, who managed our household while I pursued an ever-elusive fortune. She was my partner in every sense, not only in life but in work. She transcribed my dictations tirelessly as I poured out stories that were both my salvation and my burden. Without her, I do not know how I could have endured. What a paradox my life became. In the depths of despair, under the crushing weight of necessity, my most enduring works were born. Crime and Punishment, The Idiot, Demons, and others, each emerged from the cauldron of my suffering. Poverty, fear, and the specter of failure sharpened my vision. I came to understand the moral struggles of humanity not in theory but in practice. Without my trials, would Raskolnikov have wrestled so convincingly with guilt? Would Prince Myshkin have embodied such fragile purity? But the cost of this insight was almost unbearable. The sleepless nights, the constant anxiety, the moments when I could see no way forward, they left their marks on my soul and on my family. There were days when I dreamed of a life free from these burdens, a life where I might write not out of necessity but from the sheer joy of creation. To wake without fear, to compose without the specter of financial ruin, that was my dream. Yet it was not to be. My life was not one of ease or comfort, but of struggle and transformation. Through the crucible of hardship, I became the writer you know, the man who sought not only to entertain but to reveal truth. And so, my dear listeners, I offer you this, my works, born of despair and perseverance. If they move you, if they challenge you or offer you solace, then perhaps my suffering was not in vain. Perhaps, in the end, I have paid my debt, not in rubles, but in words, in stories, in the unflinching exploration of the human condition. This is my legacy, and this is my redemption. Section 3, I was sentenced to death. Have you ever stared into the abyss, my friends? Felt the icy breath of death on your neck, the drumroll of your final moments, the silence that engulfs all but your own desperate heartbeat? I have. And that shadow, it never truly left me, even after the noose was loosened and my sentence commuted. It began with ideas. Dangerous ideas, they said. To gather with like-minded individuals, to read, to question the authority of the Tsar, that was my crime. My comrades and I were part of the Petrushevsky Circle, a group that dared to imagine a world of freedom and justice. But in Nicholas I's Russia, to dream of such a world was treason. We were arrested in 1849, dragged from our homes, and thrown into cells where time ceased to exist. Months passed before the trial, and then the verdict, death by firing squad. The Tsar's justice was swift and merciless. We were taken to Semyonovsky Square on a bitter December morning. The snow crunched beneath our boots, and the sky above was gray and empty, as if the heavens themselves had turned away. They tied us to posts, blindfolded us, and read the sentence aloud. The rifles were raised. My life, everything I had ever been or hoped to be, flashed before my eyes. And then, stop. The order came at the final moment. It was a staged reprieve, an act of psychological cruelty meant to break us. Our sentence was commuted to hard labor in Siberia. The Tsar's officials believed they were offering mercy, but it was no mercy to send us into exile stripped of dignity, hope, and the belief that life held any kindness. Siberia became my world for 4 years. I was shackled, forced to labor in unbearable conditions, surrounded by criminals of every stripe. The frost bit deep, and the isolation was even colder. Days bled into one another as I toiled alongside men who had stolen, killed, and betrayed. And yet, in those years of forced labor, I began to see something unexpected, the humanity buried beneath even the darkest actions. Some shared what little they had, others spoke of families left behind, of dreams abandoned but never forgotten. It was in Siberia that I rediscovered my faith. The New Testament became my refuge. I read it again and again, finding in Christ's suffering a parallel to my own. But where Christ's suffering was redemptive for the world, mine was personal. It stripped away the illusions of pride and ambition, leaving me with a deeper understanding of the human condition. When my sentence was reduced in 1854, I was allowed to serve as a soldier in a Siberian regiment. Though the physical chains were removed, the mark of exile stayed with me. I was no longer the man who had been arrested in St. Petersburg. The years of imprisonment and exile had reshaped me. My faith had deepened, my understanding of suffering had sharpened. Returning to the world of letters was not easy. The scars of my past were visible in my works. Notes from the House of the Dead drew directly from my Siberian experiences, portraying the brutal reality of prison life and the resilience of the human spirit. Crime and Punishment, The Idiot, and Demons all reflected the themes of redemption, moral struggle, and the search for meaning in suffering. But my personal struggles were far from over. Financial difficulties plagued me for much of my life, and the specter of my earlier gambling addiction haunted me. Yet, through it all, I wrote. Writing became my way of processing the weight of my experiences, of giving voice to those who suffered in silence. So I ask you, my friends, what is suffering if not a teacher? It is the thread that binds us all, a common experience that forces us to confront our deepest selves. My years in Siberia taught me that suffering is not merely a punishment, it is a crucible. It refines, reshapes, and, if we let it, redeems. My life was not an easy one, nor a perfect one. But if my works have moved you, if they have illuminated something of the human condition, then perhaps my trials were not in vain. Perhaps, through them, I found the means to pay the debt I owe to life itself, not with gold, but with truth. Section 4, 2 Stormy Marriages. Ah, my dear friends, what is marriage if not a crucible, a test of character, endurance, and the capacity to both give and forgive? I have walked the path of union twice, and with each step, I learned as much about my own flaws as I did about the complexities of love and partnership. My first wife, Maria Dmitrievna Isieva, entered my life during a turbulent period. She was recently widowed, grieving, and struggling to care for her young son. I met her while I was living in Siberia after my release from the penal colony, working in Semipalatinsk as a low-ranking soldier. Our relationship began not from a spark of romance, but from shared loneliness and hardship. I offered her support, and perhaps she saw in me a steady, if flawed, presence. Maria was a woman of delicate health, battling tuberculosis, a disease that consumed her both physically and emotionally. Our marriage was marked by deep affection, but also by misunderstandings and jealousy. I, too, struggled with feelings of insecurity, exacerbated by our financial troubles and my impulsive nature. These strains brought out the worst in both of us. We were poor, desperately so, and the specter of poverty hung over every aspect of our life. I tried to provide, yet the earnings from my writing and military service were never enough. Maria's illness worsened, and I found myself torn between caring for her, managing our debts, and trying to establish myself as a writer. When she passed away in 1864, I was left with a profound sense of guilt. Had I done enough? Or had my own failings added to her suffering? And then came Anna. Anna Grigoryevna Snitkina, my dear second wife, whose patience and strength transformed my life. I met Anna in 1866 when she worked as my stenographer on The Gambler, a novel I was desperate to finish to meet a punishing deadline imposed by my publisher. She was only 20 years old, 25 years my junior, yet her calm demeanor and practical mind immediately impressed me. We married the following year, and Anna became not only my wife but my most steadfast ally. She managed my chaotic finances, negotiated with publishers, and even took charge of selling my manuscripts when we found ourselves in dire straits. She was a woman of remarkable resilience, bearing the weight of my flaws with grace. But even Anna's strength was tested by my gambling addiction. My obsession with roulette was a vice I could not easily abandon. During our travels in Europe, I lost not only money but also her trust on more than one occasion. There were nights I would return to her empty-handed, my spirit heavy with shame. Yet Anna never abandoned me. She held our family together, using her sharp mind and unshakable resolve to shield me from creditors and ensure we survived. Despite my failings, Anna and I shared moments of profound love and partnership. She gave me 2 children, our firstborn, Sophia, who tragically died as an infant, and our son, Fyodor. Her devotion and belief in my work never wavered, even when I doubted myself. She was the reason I could continue writing during some of the darkest periods of my life. Looking back, I often wonder, did I give Anna the love and support she deserved? Or was my love too entangled in my own struggles, too burdened by the weight of my shortcomings? Marriage, I have learned, is not about perfection. It is about perseverance, about standing beside each other even when the ground beneath your feet feels unsteady. Through Maria, I learned the fragility of love and the damage that unresolved pain can inflict. Through Anna, I discovered the strength that comes from unwavering loyalty and mutual sacrifice. Both unions, though vastly different, shaped me profoundly. To love, my friends, is to open oneself to joy and sorrow, to triumph and failure. It is to see yourself reflected in another, flaws and all, and to choose to stay. These experiences, as painful and imperfect as they were, taught me what it means to be human. And in that, I found the inspiration for many of the characters and themes that live within my work.